Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Pixelated Perfect podcast. I am super excited for today's guest. We have Mica. Mica is our newest designer at the Design Project. I'm really excited to dive deeper into her story because I think she has a very interesting background, and I think it'll be very interesting for you listeners out there, kind of how she has transitioned her career over the years. So thank you, Mica, for joining. I'm so excited you're here.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for asking me to be here tonight.
Of course. So let's just get into it. Let's start at the beginning. So tell me, when did design first kind of appear in your life?
Design kind of appeared at a young age for me. I was in high school and we had this crazy art teacher who lets us do a lot of interesting things. I started to do collages, digital collages, and my computer I have this old Photoshop installed, and that was kind of my first approach. I didn't know anything. I look at some videos, YouTube videos, and started from there.
I love that. That's awesome. That reminds me of when my first experience with Photoshop was I learned how to take faces from my friends and put them on celebrities' bodies. So then I'd always my friends would be standing next to their big boy crush, and that was what I started with in Photoshop.
I totally get that. One of my things with my friends was do this to my body or make my lips go plumper. It was very funny.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Yeah, that just reminded me of it. Awesome. So you had this really cool teacher. You kind of played with collages. And then what did you major in school?
In school, I did the creative advertising. I started with creative advertising at first. I have a background in advertising. I did art direction. I was fully into the mode of teaching myself a lot of things. I thought that the University of Buenos Aires that teach graphic design at the time was not so digital. It was very editorial for me. So I was very eager to learn a lot of things and kind of do my own career and my own path. So I did creative advertising, art direction, website design, branding, and into then product design, which was the last thing I did.
Yes, and I love that. So teaching yourself and kind of going in that direction, what did that look like for you? What resources did you use to be able to kind of learn on your own?
Yeah, it was kind of interesting because I am not a reader. I don't like to read so much, but when I really enjoy learning, so that kind of balanced it out a little bit for me. So yeah, I was seeing a lot of videos. I'm a very visual person. I'm much more of the movie type than the reading type, than the book type. So for me, it was a lot of videos, a lot of resources, online resources. I think nowadays internet has a huge amount of resources that anybody can find. I don't think it's necessary to pay for a huge career and a lot of courses just to be someone or get to the amount of knowledge you want to get. So that was kind of interesting for me too.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. And one thing I know about you personally is that you're very organized, and you like to take notes, and I think that probably lends a hand with you kind of doing it on your own, right? Learning and putting together, did you have a schedule that you wanted to follow, or a specific what you wanted to learn, or was it oh, I'll just watch these videos and wherever the YouTube algorithm takes me, that'll be my next video? Or did you kind of plan out more specifically what you wanted to learn?
No, definitely I'm a planner. You know me.
Yeah.
I'm a planner. But it was kind of like where the wind takes me at a interest level, if you know what I mean, because I'm very curious, so I changed my like the things I liked change quite a lot. As I was telling you, I started with digital marketing, and that kind of bored me a little bit. Another thing with creative advertising and marketing was kind of the work, like the toxic workspace sometimes advertising creates. We can talk about that in a little bit while. That was one of my reasons to transition into more of a branding and product and web atmosphere. But yeah, I really like to plan what I was going to study and like put on my, in that time Notion was not a thing, but I have like my Word and added like a lot of courses and YouTube links to it,
Yes,
just
I
to
love that.
check the boxes.
Right, right. Got to put it on there. That box is like the best feeling. So what was your first job? What was your first big girl job?
Yeah, my first bigger job was at a creative agency. So that was really cool. I was a junior designer, recently graduated, and I was really looking forward to learn a lot. It was not an art direction job. It was more of a designer job, which I really loved because I was, after doing creative advertising, I kind of realized I didn't want like the art director type of job. I wanted the designer job. So that opened a lot of possibilities for me to work with a lot of clients like Citroën or Austral University. And also, yeah, kind of teach me a lot. I had a great designer mentor who is a friend of mine right now. So that was super great.
I love that. So I feel like we jumped into your first job, but I realized that I guess like I want to talk about like that advertising marketing, that toxic workplace, and how you knew that wasn't the space you wanted to be in. Like let's open that door. I'm curious.
Yeah, no, it was difficult for me because I thought that creative advertising was something that I had to do and I had to follow because it was like the trend of the time. And I was in and out of different agencies. I didn't find like my way in any of them really. My last agency was a very, very toxic one. I had like working hours from 8 o'clock to 4 in the morning, 3 in the morning. We were working with a very, very great, not great, but huge client, really. It was not great. So it's really this thing about like the more you work, the more burned out you are, the more hours you put, and the less time you have for your social life, the greater you are your job. So that was like not for me. I think that is something that creative agencies or digital marketing agencies really tend to do. Somebody will come at me for this, but that is what I really think from my experience, right? So at that last agency, the job that really like what I was like, that's it, was that I got diagnosed with celiac disease. It's something you're born with, but it's a disease that triggers with stress. So it was like, this is like, I have to prioritize my health, I have to prioritize my mind. So that was like the triggering point for me, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's interesting. I think the work culture is changing a lot, right? Like recognizing that burnout's real and that there's a balance. And I definitely think there is. And I definitely think it's not only, my personal opinion is it's not only about the company. I think the company has a lot to do with it, but it's also about recognizing yourself, like what you want and what's going to make you happy. And it sounds like you kind of went through that whole cycle of like, oh, I want to work, I want to do this. And then like, you kind of like hit a wall and you're like, wait, like, what is this all for?
Yeah,
my health
exactly.
and me is more important than work.
Yeah, yeah, no, and that is when I kind of transitioned into freelance, right? So I wanted to really prioritize my health and the things that made me happy, not only with my personal life but with my work. I consider myself to be a very workaholic person, but limits are limits, right? So I had to like transition that, and as I'm very organized, freelancing for me kind of went naturally. It was really nice for me to connect with different clients, to envision what I wanted to do with the projects I wanted to do, and kind of bring my voice into those and my creative direction and my thoughts and strategy and most importantly design. So yeah, that was really, really great.
Yes, I love that. I would love to open this up to asking more about like becoming a freelancer. So, and maybe it's more like tips and tricks, or for those listeners that are maybe in a full-time job, maybe it's even in the design industry and they're ready to go full-time freelance. Like, what would you recommend? What are those steps that you took? Maybe those learnings that you have, like, oh, don't do this, I did this. What would you suggest for people out there wanting to make that jump?
I think for transitioning to freelance, for me, it's because I'm a very like rational and organized person. I would say have a plan. If you like kind of rush into freelancing, it can be very, very overwhelming, and you have to like, from being into a relationship with another company that like hires you and does your accounting for you and gives you this and that, to going into freelancing, which is hire somebody if eventually you want that path, go into your own accounting, manage a lot of things, client relationships, your own work, being freelance. I think it's super great, I love it, but you're a little bit alone in the process. You don't have like that sense of team work and team bonding and everything that is found in when you work on a relationship with your company. So that can be kind of overwhelming, and that is why I think you should have a plan, and you have to like stick to that.
Yeah. So what was your plan? Did you have like, was it financial goals? Was it number of customers? What was your goal as you transitioned?
Yeah, I think that from a very young age, as I started to study design, I have some mini freelance work. So I kind of, I had that customer base. And so I was all about referrals at that time. Many customers were referring to their friends or their loved ones, people they knew, etc., etc. So that was my transition. I have like a lot of backlog clients that I wanted to pay more attention to, and also I was very fed up as I was telling you, from the marketing industry. So I was like, I love strategy, I love branding, I love website. Let's do this. This is like now or never. And as I was telling you, I had like the client base, so it was like just giving the jump.
Yes, I love that. I think that's kind of my experience when I went freelance. I didn't, I think I had a couple of connections, but I do recommend for everyone thinking of going freelance is building those relationships, which is definitely something I'm going to talk about more because I know that you have so much experience in that, is building those relationships and having those referrals is key. Like that's going to keep you sustained and confident and kind of like bringing in more work. So it's like the more customers you get, the more that they recommend people, and then you have this whole network, and then you're like having to take on customers that make the most sense for you. So I think it sounds a little daunting, but it's like one connection at a time can turn into that many more, which is super powerful.
Yeah, and I think maybe on that note, being a freelance, sometimes you think that you have to like put advertisement on Instagram and build like a huge, powerful website and have all of these resources and pay a lot of things just to get known. And maybe it's like you said, like one customer at a time, like doing that ant work, like very tiny, one at a time. So that's also very powerful.
Yes. And I love what you said about connecting with different clients, and it's really like you taking that ownership and envisioning like what the scope of that could be. And like, yes, it can be lonely, and I agree with you on that spectrum of it, but it's also like freeing, and it feels so good to be able to kind of lead your own process and follow what you think is best and work with customers that you feel a connection to, which is really special from the freelance world.
Yes, absolutely. I had my plate of customers, if we are going to talk about this, right? Because I had like the best number 10 full A student customers, and I had the ones that would not pay me, the ones that could not deliver feedback on time. And that is part of the process of the freelancing, right? Just to maybe learn more about your process, what you need, what your customer needs also, and try to build on those relationships and become better and more professional in what you do.
Yeah. That's great. It's true. There's definitely both of those customers. So what if you could go back in time to younger you, what would you do differently with maybe some of those tough customers?
I think two things. I would prioritize myself more, and I would learn earlier how to say no.
Let's dive into those because those are both really juicy.
Yeah.
Prioritize yourself more. What do you mean by that?
I mean by that I was always a workaholic because I love what I do, but sometimes I would prioritize work and delivering on time instead of me and my things. So I would have like maybe a friend dinner with friends, and I was like, no, I have to work, sorry, we'll try to reschedule. And that was not a good thing. Absolutely not.
Yes. I have more questions on this because I 1,000% agree, and I think that's so important to prioritize yourself and to hold yourself accountable. But I also have worked with you enough to know that when you have deadlines, you're going to meet them. And that's also how I think too. Like, I think of myself as like planning me time, but I also think that there's this level, like, I don't know if it's just like 2022, 2023. So this is just an open question to you. It's like, I feel like people are like, or maybe it's like Gen Z coming in, they're like, oh, I need to do myself. And then like, I feel like they don't do anything. And then they use, people are going to say something about this. I feel like they use excuses for not getting things done. And I don't mean it in I don't know. This is just like an open question to you because I think there's self-prioritization, and then I think there's just like plain like letting things fall through the crack and using it as a way to not do things. Like, what do you think about this kind of happening in the workplace?
Yeah, I think that definitely there's, with the pandemic and everything, there's been like a huge like energy shift people are going like trying to reconnect with themselves, the workspace, working from home, going into the office. There's like a lot of that happening. And so I feel like also with the newer generations, as you were saying, like there is a lot going on and a lot of changes. So I think as every transition ever, there's like a middle ground where we have to pass. Like everything is super chaotic and we're trying to like find the middle and the common ground and the balance between everything. So I think that for it to be peace, first there has to be chaos, right? So so I think this is fully necessary to then like lead into the path that everybody feels comfortable with.
I really like that line. There has to be there has to be peace. There has to be chaos.
It has to be chaos in order to
yes.
Before to
there
be
has
peace.
to be chaos in order to have peace. I think that's true. I think it's like starting a new job or taking on freelance, like there is those times that are super busy, but recognizing that there has to be an end point and there has to be a place where like you continue to work towards a better process for yourself so that you can't. So it's like, I feel like it shifts, right? Like sometimes work is a priority, sometimes personal, and you've got to find that balance. So yeah, there definitely has to be chaos before peace. That I really like that.
Yeah.
I feel like we need to like make that a
motivational speech.
Yes, exactly. Okay, that was my little tangent I went on. But the other thing you said, going back to it, was learning to say no earlier. Let's talk about that one.
Oh, well, that was not also in my freelance career, but in my like industry advertisement career. There was a lot of times which, just going back to the first thing I said, I would overwork myself like crazy and would not say no because I felt like if I said no, if I didn't like work until 4 a.m., I was like a bad person, like I was the worst employee of all time. So I think that is part maybe of this toxic environment, but also holding myself accountable of that. I would say I was a very junior designer and I didn't know my worth. So as long as you, I think as you know your worth, you gain more experience, you can like present yourself in a different way, right?
Yeah, so what did that look like for you? Like, I mean, I guess you reached that point where you quit your toxic job, so maybe that was you kind of learning and knowing your worth. But is there another moment, or is that the moment where you were like, hey, this isn't who I am. This isn't, I can do so much more. I'm worth more than this.
Yeah, it was that. There were a lot of times, really. There was another time that I took the blame for a whole team because I couldn't say no. Like, that was not me. Everything like led up to me, and I was like in a huge ball of chaos. That chaos leading to peace, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a different moment for me also.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like an important lesson, especially for junior designers. I think it's definitely knowing when to say no, and also like leaning on and feeling confident with who you are and what you know and what you don't know. Like my podcast earlier this week with Martine, he said something like, it's like milk. If you're a junior designer, milk that. Like, you aren't supposed to know everything, right? So like take advantage of that and constantly be learning and growing and like, and feel that and know that and feel confident, and that's where you are. And I thought that was really powerful, and I feel like that kind of speaks to this, is like, you're not responsible for the whole team. You were not at that level. You were not valued for your worth, and it's like after that, those experiences, you ended up whether through freelance or whatever, you found yourself and you knew who you were and you knew where you were in your career and what you wanted.
Yeah, no, and being a junior designer, I think that is what Martin said, is very powerful. And also, like, don't be afraid to ask the hard questions, the thing you don't understand. A lot of, maybe, I remember a lot of times where I was like, no, if I ask this, I'll be looking like a fool, or I cannot be not knowing this, or and nobody expects you to know. You should be asking the questions you don't know, because that's what makes you really interesting for the whole team, like adding value to the research, branding, design in general. So that should be like a really important advice for everyone too.
Love that. Well said. Yes, definitely. So let's continue with freelance. We talked a little bit about how to get into freelance, some tools and tricks and learnings from your time in the freelance space. So you started off freelancing. What happened after that?
After freelancing, I had my two agencies that I count as freelancing because I was like the big part of that.
Well, let's talk about those then, because that's where I thought this was going. Like, you started and founded your own agencies. Like, you were freelancing and then you basically started these companies. Talk about these companies that you had.
One was a digital marketing agency, and the other one, which was my most recent one, was a branding agency. It was like a full design, but specialized in branding and website. And it was a ride. Like the first one, the marketing one, I founded it with two friends. Eventually we came to want different things, customer wise, work wise, and we outgrown it eventually. And the branding studio was like my baby, if I can say that. Like, I really focused on what I really wanted, which was website, brand identity, and strategy. So that was the one that I learned most in, because it was everything I was doing by myself. So it was very, very interesting.
Yeah, so this digital marketing, when you and your friends kind of parted ways and wanted different things, was that because you wanted to focus on branding, websites, and strategy? Was that kind of where you were headed?
Yeah, it was the time that 2 years ago that product starting in its rise. So I was like, we have to do this. I really want to do some app strategy, UI. I wanted to get in that as soon as possible, and it was really my passion. So I was like, let's do this. And they were kind of like, we are a digital marketing agency. What are you talking about? You're crazy. This is not happening. And I was like, okay, great. Let's keep this, but I want to like pursue this for my like personal ambitions and goals. So that was like the transition.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. So how did you start this up? Like, what were those first initial stages of creating your branding agency?
It was like late nights after work with a glass of wine and my notepad, and just writing what I wanted, just kind of manifesting and thinking about what that studio would look like, what it would tell, what was the name, what was I going to represent, what would my customers be, and a lot of things that you don't typically think you have to think about, but you do. So that was really interesting. It was like 2 months of planning.
Yeah, I love that you said that. I think that like when we started the design project, it kind of morphed. We actually started as the branding project before moving to the design project. And like right away, initially, the whole Like it was like, what do we want to be? Where do we see ourselves in a year? Where do we see ourselves in 5 years? I think it's so important to put these things down in words, and things can change and shift, but having this like guiding light, I think is really key for anyone that wants to like start their own thing. Like have a direction you want to go. What is your mission? What are your values? Who are those target customers? Like doing this upfront research is everything to make sure that every decision you make after that has a reason and a purpose, and it goes back to some of these initial ideas that you had. So yeah, I love that, and I think that's how you build successsul companies. Those late nights.
Yeah, those late nights, exactly.
So you launched. Where did these customers come from? Were they from like your previous freelancing world? What did that look like?
Yeah, I started with previous freelancing customers, and then I opened my Instagram account and started to do just uploading my work. And this was really great, but I started to realize that a lot of people from the US and Europe went into my Instagram account. So I just saw the comments. I was like, what do they like? What do they prefer? And started to upload more of those things. And I then started to build that base of customers. And when I got like the first 3 customers that weren't from Argentina, I was like, I have to do like the best work of my life. And then the referrals came. So that was like a huge ball that went perfectly smooth and naturally.
I love that. So Instagram is successful. It worked for you. You were able to get customers from outside of Argentina by using Instagram as your like portfolio, essentially.
Yeah, I started with Instagram, then I did my own website, but Instagram is where most of my clients came from.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I think this is not the regular thing. I don't think like Instagram works for everybody. What I think works is that once you get those leads, what are you gonna do to like capture them, right? What are you gonna do to like provide the best services to show them that it's you and not the other thousands and thousands of accounts that they see on a regular basis.
So what did you do? What was your secret? What was your secret sauce?
I don't know. I think that the best secret or sauce or anything is just to be yourself and like show the added value you can give. It came from the late night thinking of my process, and one of my questions for myself was, what is the added value I'm gonna give to these customers? Why are they choosing me and not other people? And I think I told you this when I interviewed for TP, but one of my customers came to my birthday, and I went to their wedding. So it was like, I was building huge connections with people from other countries and from this country, but especially from other countries, trying to bond teams together, working with great people that then recommended me to other people. I worked with a copywriter from the US that recommended me to one of their customers. So it's like all,
Yes.
the network.
And I guess what's important to note there, I love that story, is like, kind of back to what we said, is it just starts with one, right? Like, it feels overwhelming. It's like, oh, you were successful, you went on Instagram, you got all these customers, but it started with going on Instagram. It started with one post, and it started with one comment, right? So like, I think that's a lesson to everyone out there, is like, you got to start somewhere, and it evolves over time, and those late nights and those questions you asked yourself, and slowly over time compounding, it leads to success or failure. And that's fine
Yeah.
too, because you learned and you put
Of
everything you had
course.
into it.
I had failures, obviously. There, I have. I hate to say this, but I had more than one client like not paying me, or like just poof vanishing out of thin air. And that is, then I started with like restructuring my process. Okay, 50% advance payment. Okay, I'm sending you an invoice. Okay, I'm sending you a contract. Okay, like it's really nice to like go all in, to learn from your failures and mistakes, and then like become better, right? Because you can be great at everything. Nobody knows everything. Just surround yourself with people that know better than you,
I love
and
that.
do things great, and take the little things you like from everybody and just do your own thing.
I love that. Yeah, it's like make it yours and make it your process, and yeah, learn from your mistakes. I think that's like a key. I know it's a key pillar at the design project too, and I know we align a lot on a lot of our values, but yes, always be learning and growing. Like, you wouldn't have asked for 50% deposit, or maybe you wouldn't have upped your prices. So there's so many things that cascaded from that, those customers not paying you, right? That like set you
Yeah.
up for success further down the line.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. So let's talk about next. So what happened after, like, so branding agency going well, getting new customers. What's next?
What's next is TDP. No, I was like, I was, as I was saying, it was great, but at one time, two things happened to me. One was that I had the UI skills, I had the design skills, website, applications, everything. But as I was learning, I wanted to become like a UX pro or something. Like, I wanted to give that more importance into my design career. And the other thing that happened is, as I was telling you, freelancing can be kind of like lonely. So I wanted that feedback, right? I wanted that, like, asking questions and having a teammate, having a group. I kind of missed that. So I was like, okay, let's see another thing, and let's search for another thing. And TDP appeared in my life. Really, it was awesome.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, I think like what I want to ask you about this is like, you built something great. And how was that transition of recognizing that you wanted more and you wanted something different? So like, how could you kind of, I guess, make that decision to like leave what you've built and that's your baby to pursue something that you think is gonna push you in a growth trajectory?
Yeah, I think that was the most difficult decision I made, because the studio was going great. I had great clients. The money was great. The connections were great. The referrals were great. But it's not like it's just the difference between the ego. Like, this is mine. It's going great. I have to keep this. And what if I want more? What if or more, I don't know if more, something different. Is it that bad to ask for something different? We are changing. I'm changing every time, but humans are changing like all the time. We don't just become like the same person and that's it. We change over time. We have different, aspirations and everything. So I was like, it's not bad to want different things. Let's do this. And If you don't like it, you can always come back because you have like your clients and everything. But yeah, it's really working now. So I don't know if I want to come back. Let's see.
No, I love what you said about ego. Is like, and you know, I feel this too. Like the design project, I feel like is my baby, and I'm like I feel like I'm learning from you right now. Is like, hey, like, what is next for me personally, and what does that look like with the design project or not? That's not a spoiler. I'm saying the design project, I'm very happy. But I think that's something to keep in mind is as you're like building something great, you're always striving for great, for what great means to you, but also knowing that there is another future and to let go of that ego and pick the decision that makes the most for you. So I think that's something that is going to stick with me in the future as well. So I appreciate that little nugget.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of designers struggle with ego just because like you were saying, like maybe, I don't know, you have like your own baby, your own design project or whatever, and you're like, I want to do everything. Let's like supervise designers, let's manage this, let's design this, and you have to like let go of some things and just know that you can like leave things to other people and it would be okay.
Yes, that's been a very hard learning for me. For sure, you like basically hit the nail on the head on
because I can relate.
Yes, it's definitely like, this is how it's done, this is my baby, I know this works, versus opening up and hearing what other people think and realizing that everyone has really great ideas, and by letting go, TDP is going to grow and get better and get more ideas and be successful without me feeling like I have to have my reins on it. Like, I feel like TDP is like this entity, like it's going to do what it's going to do. And I feel like I've grown it up to this point, or I guess a little before this point, and now we have such an amazing team that's being able to take over and run with it. And like, I'm really excited to see what happens with everything you're helping with and all of the designers. So I do feel like it's my baby, but I also am letting it grow up and giving it the space to grow, which has been extremely hard. And I
cutting the wings
a lot.
Yes.
But yes,
I can totally relate to that.
Yes, I love that. I know you can, so I appreciate that. Well, awesome. So I guess like the last question I have for you is like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Like, do you have an idea of where your career is going to take you, or where you think it could take you?
Well, as aspirations go, maybe I would love to like maybe manage a team or something like that. But really, as I was saying, like people change a lot. So I just want to be happy with what I'm doing. I just want to be learning and being happy and really like waking up every day and saying like, yeah, I love my work and I want to keep doing this because it makes me happy. So
I love that. Life is too short to not wake up every day enjoying what you do.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mica, for this conversation. I feel like we touched on some really interesting topics. I think a lot of like the freelancing and then starting your own business and like leading to growth and ego and all of in between. So I really, really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you tomorrow on Zoom.
Yes. Thank you so much for this. I really enjoyed it too.
Awesome. Thanks, Mica. We'll chat soon.
Okay. Thanks.